Okay, phase two, 2000 Silverado, removing the engine and transmission and drivetrain. As I said earlier, it looked like the easiest thing was to take the transfer case out first. Obviously, you take out both drive shafts, front and rear. We had this up in the air pretty high, about a foot, so we could get under it in order to do that. Once the drive shafts are out, I'll show you the transfer case here, which we removed. There's several plugs, which once you feel around the top of the transfer case and the bottom, you'll see these plugs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I believe there's 5. Here's a drain plug. I would recommend draining the oil out of the transfer case and also draining the oil out of the transmission. Just makes things a little easier, doesn't end up all over the floor and make a mess. So this is where the transfer case bolts to the transmission. As you can see, there's 6 bolts. Now this thing sets in the truck to where this bolt is right up on top. This bolt is right on the bottom. This is the hardest bolt to get to because it's right on the top. None of them are really easy to get to. A stubby ratchet wrench, 15 millimeter, works the best, but even then, this top one is not easy to get the wrench onto it. So what I did was, since I knew I was taking the engine out anyway, I put a jack under the transmission pan with a board, of course, and I took the rear transmission mount out. 2 bolts on the top, 2 bolts on the bottom, and I was able to raise the transmission and take the mount totally out, the rear transmission mount. What that allowed me to do then was to lower the jack back down and lower the transmission about 4 inches or so, which enabled me to get my arm up in there real easily and take that bolt off. And I think even if I wasn't taking out the engine, if I was just doing the transfer case, I would have done that anyway, because it made it so much easier. Because once I had those bolts out, I was able to raise the transmission back up, the back of the engine back up, and with that rear transmission mount gone, it was a lot easier to get a wrench on this nut because the rear transmission mount kind of blocks this. So then I got all those off. It took me a couple hours to get everything disconnected maybe and do all that. It wasn't a big deal, just, methodical. Like I said, get the fluids out first and whatnot. The drive shafts come out pretty easy like any other drive shaft. You can see there's where the front one goes. Here's where the back one goes. A few guys online said you should remove this encoder too, because if you drop it and break it, it's about a $700 part. I think this housing down here on the encoder is plastic. So I can see that, but we got it out of there without any trouble. It's, a little heavy, maybe, I don't know, 100 pounds, something like that. So anyway, once we got that out, I stuck the transmission mount back in there just loosely because I knew we were going to unhook it later to take the engine out. So, to the engine. Once we got the transfer case out, a lot of these things on the front here, self-explanatory. Okay, this isn't rocket science. Taking bolts out, you see what's got to come out. Radiator comes out easily. It helps if you've got a set of these for pulling out the plastic pins that hold some of this stuff together. Clutch fan. That's a counterclockwise nut. Water pump has a couple holes in it there. You hold that with a spanner wrench. Put a big wrench on that. And I said counterclockwise, didn't I? Yeah, counterclockwise to take it off, which means it's standard thread. It's standard left-hand Lucy from the front of the engine to take that off. And the rest of it, so far so good. You know, when you take this air duct off, put a rag in there. Another cool thing about this, you don't have to take the hood off. As you can see, I think I can see, Drew did this. Yeah. Normal operation, this arm is up here. Okay, if you take one of these off at a time and move the bolt and the arm to down here, guess what? It holds the hood straight up and down practically. So you can get the engine out without taking the hood off. Okay? I mean, you know what sometimes hoods are to get realigned, and there's no way you'd want to take that hood off completely anyway. The nuts are down in there, the bolts. So that's a pretty neat trick. Works pretty easily. That I did find online, which I was happy to find it. So anyway, that's about it for now. I'm taking the engine, the transmission, taking the computer, wire harness. This is a 2000, so it's a drive-by cable. I'm going to take the gas pedal, and hopefully then this thing's going to get cleaned up, and it's going to go into this 66. And that may be hard to believe since I've been working on this for about 10 years. And here's the chassis for the 66, sitting back here. But they make mounts, kits for all this to bolt it in without any trouble. So anyway, that's about it for now. Once we start to jack on this thing and get a little further along, I'll do a phase 3 video. Hardwood Garage signing out.